Welcome, everyone. This is Pineleaf Needles, and you are listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And with us this week, we have Andang,
Hey everybody.
Draculetta,
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Trish,
Hello.
and please welcome our guest for this week, Terry Adwin.
Hi.
Welcome, and thank you for coming to our show tonight.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, now we'll start our show by asking you just how you got into LOTRO.
I've been thinking about this all week. It started a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. No, wrong fandom.
Wrong game.
Oh, I thought you got into it because of Star Wars or something.
Actually, a really long time ago, I used to play online text-based role-playing games, and some people that I played with on a game that no longer exists were like, you need to come play this game with us. It's just gone free to play because, I didn't have any money. So free is good. Free is always good. And so they were like, you need to come play it. It's free. And so I did, and I actually joined the wrong server like the first time I made a character, which led to, it's actually really the reason why I've server hopped to 7 or 8 or, all of the servers. Technically, I have Terry Adwin on every server. So, I've been to all of them. Not actually played on all of them, but yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I know. Because something about, I actually got into the community back during Sapiens' Hobbit run stuff last year, because it happened to be, there was a link posted in like the launcher, and I was waiting for it to update, so I was like, oh, hey, let's go follow this, and it happened to be on a day that he was doing stuff, because, the update came out forever ago, but I hadn't played in a while, and so I was like, this is really cool, and I started interacting with people in the chat room, and from there it led to finding the LOTRO Players site, and I actually think the first LOTRO Players video that I watched was one of Braxwolf's tutorials on the Hunter after Helm's Deep came out, and I wrote a couple of articles for LOTRO Players, and then I've been in LOTRO Players Adventures, and I still don't really consider myself to be part of the community, but, I'm a part of the community, so. And now I'm here.
All right, welcome.
And I've met some great people, because I met you, and I met Drac, and I met Anding, and I met
Yay.
Trish, and I hang out with Trish in game at least
A
2 or 3
lot.
times a week. Yeah,
Yes.
we hang out a lot.
Several of our characters. In fact, I believe her champion is the boyfriend that one of my elves is looking for, the lost boyfriend that she's looking for.
My other champion, yeah.
Her other champion. Yeah, when she told me, I'm like,
He
oh
has
my
a name.
gosh, that could be Glordrill's boyfriend she's been looking for.
It's funny because he has a name, but I never actually call him by his name. He's just other champion. Because Terry Adwin's the champion. She's my champion.
So yeah, I'll bet he has a real complex, that poor guy.
He deserves it. He's an elf.
Oh, he's an elf.
Yeah.
That's
All
all
right, let's go into our game news for this week. There isn't much in the way. We just have another build on Borer. No, it's not update 16 or anything like that. They're just doing another quick build on the music system so that they can tweak on it and hopefully get it right eventually. But it sounds like, based on the feedback from the musicians, it's getting closer.
So I have a question, and this is probably cheating because this is like a second new player question.
Yeah.
How does one get on to Bull Roar? Is it like transferring your character, but you just do it for free and you simply say, I want to go to Bull Roar?
Actually, technically it's called copy, but that's
Copy.
They do a complete copy of whichever characters you want to move over. But to get on Boar, you have to actually download a whole nother client of LOTRO that's the beta client.
Oh my goodness.
And so if you can imagine all that space on your computer extra.
So it's like having two full versions on your computer.
Yep,
huh?
just the Bull Roar is a little newer.
Wow. Okay, well that's dedication. So I have to check how much computer space I have.
Yeah, I recommend doing
And then
that
it's just
before.
and then it's just a copy process then, right?
Yep, you just go to
And
the
the copy
website
is
and
easy
copy
and
it
it
over.
works.
Right. And essentially you say copy to Bulwer, since Bulwer is the only server you can do a copy to. All the others,
Got it.
it would be a transfer.
Yep, I'd recommend most people to download Boar before Minas Tirith comes out later this year because you're gonna
Yeah.
want to explore that when it goes up. So,
Hopefully they will have fixed copies by then, because I still haven't been able to copy over.
well, they're gonna have a whole new copy service, and the reason the copies were broken earlier is because they had it going to the EU only copy. So you have to be sure that you copy in the period that's for your part of the world, and they don't say when that is, so
Yeah.
you just kind of have to
It's
guess.
still not working.
Yes, as I said, that's one of the reasons why it's fortunate that I have a capped character on Laurelin in addition to the other servers.
Jeez. I was listening
Since
to one of the shows that you're going to be announcing later, where you were talking about how many characters you had, especially at what level, and I was just rolling my eyes. I'm like, Pine Leaf, what amazement,
Yeah,
amazement.
I never feel bad about how many alts I have, because I know that Pineleaf has more than I do.
Yeah, and I mean, and in the level cap, it's what you got, like
Yeah,
4 wardens
because
at
he's
level
got
cap.
bunches
It's
of them at
ridiculous.
level. I have one at cap.
Yeah, but keep in mind he's also been playing since Mirkwood, so
actually I've been playing before Mirkwood.
well, yeah, I forgot you have been
I
playing.
started
since then.
playing about 3 months after release.
Yep, but then you took a
Wow.
break or something for Eve, and then
No,
came
I
back for
took a
Mirkwood.
break for 3 months right before Mirkwood.
Yep.
And then made up for it. Well,
Now,
anyway,
all the
yeah,
characters
so-
I currently have were created after Moria came out.
Of course they were.
I have no characters that predate Moria right now because I deleted all the characters that don't start with Pine. And the first character
you
to start with
did.
Pine came out the day Moria came out.
But I mean, still though, if you get early on, if you level the characters up to cap, it's not too hard to maintain the cap. It's getting
Right.
new characters from nothing to 100 is the real task, and so it usually seems like a lot more to people who haven't been playing that entire
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Hey, Pineleaf.
Yeah.
Bartabris in the chat wants to know what rank Pine Venom is.
Pine Venom rank,
6, I think.
I think 6.
And where
All
is that
my
in the
play was
ranking? Is
Pine-
that pretty high or
my-
is that low?
Yeah, all my play on Pine Venom was done on the show. I didn't do much on PvP.
Yep. But to answer your question, Trish, that's not very high, but before Riders of Rohan, because the XP worked differently for PvP, that was a decent rank, but now that's fairly low for PvP.
Oh, okay.
But it does take a long time to get to rank 6 if you're on a not too populated server. So,
Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
we were on Landraville, which
yep,
I would
when we
imagine it's
started,
pretty
it was really
active.
popular. But now, for at least the time I play, not too much for PvP.
all right, let's go into our store sales. Drac, what's on sale this week?
Free sample of the week through the 19th is a simple rally horn. You get one of those when you use the coupon code HGRP5, HGRP5, and you can use that code 5 times per account. Also, 20% off in the store is a great sale this week. Shared storage, vault upgrades, inventory slots, and the currency cap. So it's about time we got a good sale.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
picked up
well,
2 things of shared storage. Yay!
then let's go into the site news. First, we have a poll, and that is who will win in a fight. And apparently, these are not people exactly known for their great combat prowess. So, who won?
Well, a hungry Hobbit won, Pineleaf, with 40 votes. They beat out Sarah Oakart, or 40% of the vote, rather, 80 votes. They beat out Sarah Oakart with 32% of the vote, Gollum with 16% of the vote, Lalia with 5% of the vote, Rook with 5% of the vote. Lolly and Rook were tied, and Grima with 3% of the vote.
Oh my goodness.
And thanks to Brian for helping come up with this
Yeah.
poll idea this week. You can send in your poll ideas to either podcast or contact at lotraplayers.com. And, we'll
Hey,
read through it and see if we get it on the site.
I'd have thought that Grima would do better seeing how Grima defeated Saruman.
Yes, but can you really? I mean, if Saruman had a pie like right behind him, he would be trampled so badly that he just wouldn't be able to move anymore. I mean, let's be honest here, Pinely.
Well, probably, but I have a feeling that the grain stores were right behind him, which would have been an equal amount of incentive considering the condition of the Shire at the time.
Yep, and I'm guessing
Actually,
Sarah
Paul-
Oakheart is either from people who have gotten a little farther in the story or who are really annoyed by her slow walking.
Yes.
And then Gollum can bite off fingers, so he's basically just a hungry hobbit, just given a little bit more gravitas, if you will.
Well,
But
yeah, you have a few hundred years possessed by a ring.
yep. And Lalia makes sense, although I'm surprised that she was lower down too. But it was an interesting poll, and hopefully we'll have some more funny polls come in. I'm looking at you, Zinger.
All right, then. Then let's go into LOTRO Players Adventures, episode 50, the final episode. And I don't think we need to ask why it was called that.
We did in the show, and a lot of people have been asking, why we ended Adventures. Basically, we got through all the group content, and if you want to watch us go through it again, instead of, us actually recording a bunch of new episodes going through it, and, trying to extend this series out longer, you can just go back and watch the old episodes. They're all up there, and I think that they're all pretty good. So feel free to go back and watch adventure episodes for any of the 6-man group content or larger.
Very well. And this week, we had not one, but 2 bonus episodes to go with LOTRO Academy episode 100. And these are the full versions of interviews that were used as part of episode 100.
There's gotta be a hungry hobbit motivating Brannick to get these out, because that's impressive. I mean, 2 episodes in 1 week for Academy. Hats off to Brannick.
Ooh, yes.
I know. I was amazed when I saw it at my feet. I'm like, woo! It's Christmas.
All right. Yes. Now we also, of course, have our video highlight, and it sounds like it involves a couple of horses.
It does. In fact, it involves the people of horses, the people of Rohan, and how they actually came into being. And this is a video done by the VBB, where they actually basically went through the history of Rohan and how it came about, and it involves hundreds of players and locations around Middle-earth that are related to this, and it's really great. It's one of my all-time favorite videos that we've had on LOTRO Video Highlights, and so if you've not seen this, and especially if you're a Rohan fan, check out this video. It is awesome, and just seeing that many players involved in something this highly edited is really impressive, and so it's by far one of my favorite video highlights so far.
All right. And going from a group of riders all heading into Rohan, we'll go to one lone rider going out of Rohan, and that is part 31 of the family line, The Twilight Host, where we run into a couple of elves.
Yay.
Oh, and dang, yeah. It sounds like for once you're not excited over the...
Nah, the story was fantastic, but elves, you can't get too excited about them.
I am not feeling the elf love tonight. What? What is going on with the elves?
That is
Come
right,
on.
Drac. You keep that in mind,
He-
okay?
They are preparing for this week's skirmish.
That's right. Remember who moderates the skirmish, and remember who only plays elves. Just saying.
Just saying.
No,
So do you
I
not have a
I
captain?
photographic proof that you have another character that's not an elf.
Yeah, well, we won't talk about that. No, I do not have a captain. Seriously, all I have is elves.
You don't have a Beorning or anything?
Well, yeah, I guess I do have a Beorning. I forgot about my Beorning, but yeah.
I guess I do have a Beorning.
Minor little thing. Well, that explains why your Bjorning hasn't leveled much.
There you go.
I guess I play a mystical character that can turn into a bear. I don't really know. It was late one night, you know.
I've been drinking.
That's right. Things happened. I woke up without any pants. I was a bear.
All right, let's head on to the Cottage of Pen and Play, where they head into the Starry Vale. And is there anything to say about the Starry Vale? What is the Starry Vale?
Pineleaf, did you read the article?
Yes.
Then you should know, Pineleaf. Why are you asking us?
I was trying to lead you in so that
Somebody else would answer, right? You were looking for a group participation.
yes.
He was going for one of his world famous segues, and you messed it up.
I made it better. This is actually the return of the Nimrod Alien Tail Spinner. It's been a while since we've seen some of his fan fiction articles, and it's great to see
Oh, we
the
saw it a
return.
couple of weeks ago.
It was a couple weeks ago, but before that we hadn't seen one in some
Yes,
time.
before that
so
was a long time.
it's great to see him getting back on a somewhat regular schedule with this. I'm excited to see the follow-up stories later on. But finally, why don't you give an overview of what this was?
Well, since it is fan fiction, you don't want me to go and spoil the thing, do you?
No, you don't, but I think you can. That's kind of why I'm passing it on to you, because I don't know how to not spoil it.
I don't know how not to spoil it either. So
But it's really
I
good.
suggest you go and read it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the new player question.
Be useful if I took my mic off mute. So this is kind of a week late since they were on special last week, but what are stat tomes and why should I care?
Why should you care?
Well,
Well,
you probably shouldn't care to start things off.
yeah, I guess you got a point there since I have never purchased one.
Okay.
I have purchased them in the past. That's just because on my champion at the time I was in a rating kin and was wanting to make my champion the best it possibly can be, and so I got, I think, a tier 5, 6, and 7 stat tome, and you have to apply them in order. So if you don't have 1 through 4, you can't use the later on ones.
Right.
And so I went ahead and bought like the earlier ones so I could use the higher up and make sure my champion had plenty of might.
I was going to say, so the stat you obviously go for is like the one that says very important in your
That would
character
be
panel.
my recommendation. I've gotten a few other stat tomes just throughout the world that didn't necessarily apply to my character, but I went ahead and applied them just because why not?
But those are just
Um,
ones you got, right? You didn't actually go to the store and buy
Right, yeah. I wouldn't recommend buying them unless you feel that your class is barely underpowered and you want a little bit extra strength. But even then, I really wouldn't recommend anything beyond just your main that you're playing. Unless you're like Pine Leaf and every class is your main. But I don't
Well,
know.
so
What
the only other way we gain in those stats is with like our equipment and weapons and stuff, right? With the
Right,
stats that are
yeah.
on those
And so these are, basically just permanent improvements to your character.
to augment. Okay.
Pine Leaf, what are your thoughts on the stat tomes?
I never used them. I've probably used them even less than you. I might have a character that happened to have dropped one time a +1 stat tome, and I might have applied it to the character that it was most reasonable to go with. But if I've done it more than once, I would be shocked.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not too sure I've actually done it once.
I think the only reason I spent points on them was because I was VIP at the time and had, I didn't need to buy any more horses because I already had my champion
You had
steed.
money to burn.
And so I had money to burn, and I had several stat tomes that were higher up just sitting in my inventory, so I was like, well, I'm raiding. I might as well make my character as good as it can be. So, unless you're feeling like really, really underpowered, but even if you're really underpowered, it'd be much better to just go grind for virtues than it would be to
Right.
spend money on this, or even just pay for upgrades to your virtues, honestly.
Right. Right. Oh, that's
These are
true.
just like an extra bonus that you can put on your character that really aren't that important because LOTRO isn't challenging enough unless you're doing like a really hard raid. So maybe when the new
Right.
instances come out, it might be worthwhile. But right now,
So
not really.
basically, maybe it's a good thing I didn't ask this question last week since they were on special last week. We don't want to sound, like we're trying
Well,
to steer people away. But I mean, so it's not something to get super excited about if there's another sale comes around of stat tomes, right?
yeah, unless you have like 5 higher up stat tomes that are just waiting to be used, I really wouldn't
Got it.
recommend going after
And
it.
fill in. Yeah, fill in. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Excellent.
Very well. Then let's go into news beyond LOTRO, where we have the Kings of Gondor, Part 4, talking about the line of the Ship Kings. And the Ship Kings, of course, are the ones that like to go up to Umbar and, let's say, attack them and take over them and expand Gondor to be great and to really make enemies of the people of Umbar. If you wonder why they are going around attacking us these days, it goes back to the days of the Ship Kings.
Yeah, so it's kind of like our own fault kind of thing.
Yes. Well, there are a lot of things where the Numenorians did certain things which remind them of the same reasons why there are, let's say, certain countries that don't exactly like our country.
Yeah, and I wonder if Umbar, if Gondor had befriended them, kind of like how they did Rohan. I wonder if Umbar would have still sided with Sauron. Obviously, there's no way to know that, but it's an interesting thought how we've
Yeah, there are a number of things which the enemies that Gondor Rohan had because of past history. Not necessarily because they're evil, like the Dunlendings. I don't think there's anything inherently evil about the Dunlendings, especially after going to all those questions with them. But they don't like the Horse Lords because Gondor went and gave the Dunland's land, the land that would belong to the Dunlendings to Rohan. Said, "Oh, here's yours. No one's living there, well, except for a few natives that we don't have to worry about." No wonder Dunland decided to attack.
yeah.
But that's an entirely different story.
I'm
I'm
always
sure.
really impressed by these articles because there's so much packed into so little. I mean,
Mhm.
there's really, I mean, they're really not all that long, but there's so much information in there.
And I know I talk about this a lot, but the images are always great every single time. I've not seen a like even medium quality image in these. They're always just absolutely fantastic, and like it's just a great series. So definitely a big hats off to Iogro for doing this.
Very well then. So let's go into the skirmish of the week. Draculetta, what's the skirmish?
Our skirmish this week is going to be which is the best depiction of Rivendell. And I'm going to go around the quote unquote table here and ask who everybody is going to argue for. We'll start with our guest, Terry Adwin. Which side are you taking?
I am taking the movies.
Okay, how about you, Trish?
I'm with Terry Adwin. We're together taking the movies.
And how about you, Andy?
The games.
And Pineleaf?
The books.
Of course you are. Okay, let's start. I'm really curious to hear what Anding has to say on this, so let's start off with him.
So let's start off with Pineleaf.
Moderator, Trish is messing things
That's
up
right.
here.
That's negative 2 points if we were
Oh
scoring
no!
points.
Oh no!
All right, so Rivendell in the game is something that's just so iconic. You start out in the Shire and you go through, start out in Bree, and those are really iconic places, but those are where you start. Rivendell is the first goal players have going towards, and so many players talk about that first trip to Rivendell just because of how iconic it is in their minds, and then when they get there, they're always blown away. And so they have these high expectations, and they're exceeded by how well the game has done it. Because when you're looking down into that valley, you feel like Frodo, Sam, and the Fellowship, and you get to go down the winding path that they had all gone on, and even like bigger names that were elves as well had traveled on there. And then you go into the Hall of Fire, and you see Bilbo and all the elves in there with him, and he's telling you riddles, and you're going around, helping him out do stuff like that. How cool is it that you're actually basically playing a riddle game with Bilbo in Rivendell? That's just so awesome. And then you go into Elrond's library, and it's a little bit small, but who cares because Elrond's there, and he just has such an
Always.
iconic character. And you get to the memories when he walks around and you see the holograms of the Rangers, and it's just such a cool moment there where you're talking with Elrond. And also, you go to, in Volume 2, you get to see the Fellowship depart Rivendell and talk with the Fellowship in Rivendell. It's just awesome. And there's just no other place that has that much stuff going on all at once in a single place in Lotro. It's the most interesting place because they kind of made it that way. And sure, it's kind of annoying to go back there after a while, but at the first impression, it's just amazing. And if you went back to any place in Lotro that much, it might become a little bit annoying. But Rivendell itself is fantastic.
Okay, Terry Hadwin, let's hear about the movies.
Okay, so I actually was not totally prepared for movies, so I had to go back and watch them again. And then I went to Wikipedia because I didn't want to spoil myself because I don't know the books at all because I read them when I was really, really young. So the thing that really got me is a thing out of the Wikipedia article, which is that Rivendell was a refuge for the weary and the oppressed, and a treasury of good counsel and wise lore. And we really see that in the movies. We see it in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, when Frodo is recovering from his being stabbed by a Morgul blade. We see it as being like a peaceful refuge. It's always very peaceful in Rivendell. You don't really think of it as being a place that's under attack. It's kind of like away from the rest of the world. Not that they're ignoring what's going on in the rest of the world, but they're kind of sheltered from it, so the conflict never really reaches there. And that's true in The Hobbit as well, because they take shelter there after being attacked by the orcs. Trish?
Yep.
Shall I go now? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Go ahead.
So I'm actually going to talk about Rivendell, not about the characters who are in Rivendell.
Oh, wow.
So I watched The Hobbit because actually it was the Hobbit movie that really gives you the first view of it in toto, the way you would see it either in the book or in the game. It's like to kind of make it the same across the board. And I also looked at, in the annotated Hobbit, Doug Anderson has a number of drawings and watercolors that Tolkien made of Rivendell. Now, granted, what Tolkien made of The Last Homely House is basically this one building at the very bottom of a valley that's absolutely, like overwhelmed by these enormous mountains and cliff sides. But just like with anything else, you can't do that in a movie or in a game, I guess, either. But what I felt was kept really true to that was this hidden in a valley. Like the whole thing about Rivendell is it's hard to find. You have to know the way to be able to get there. And in the Hobbit, they talk about slipping and sliding and whatnot. And I mean, you kind of get that sense because they're going through a very narrow passageway that finally opens out onto this just amazing thing. And the Rivendell in the movie is much more compact than in the game. Now, they still have those bridges that I would fall off of. I still would in the movie as much as in the game. But anyway, much more compact, and it's it's literally is overshadowed by these mountains. I mean, much more, I think much more accurately than in the game. Um, so for me, it just was, it took what Tolkien described in the book and just made it really more aligned with how he just, how Middle Earth is. It's like, describing Gondor, describing everything else. I mean, he didn't, as I recall, he didn't do a lot of like a lot of description, but the drawings and also how he talked about other places. I mean, I think Jackson did a really nice job with it, and it's very compact. It's much more compact. I think it's actually realistic that way, in being much more compact than what we have in the game. I mean, granted, in the game, Elrond's got like a never-ending flow of people coming in, so he has to have, space for all of those. But oh, and I also enjoyed, it was almost like seeing it in 3D, and I don't mean with my 3D glasses on. It's like you actually are, you're at the table. I mean, you get to see the scenes, and you're on the, the balcony, dining al fresco with the hobbits and Gandalf and whatnot. I mean, it just was much more with the harp players. I mean, I felt like I was really there, immersed in it in the movie.
Okay, Pine Leaf, let's hear about the books.
When I think of Rivendell, one of the memories that strikes me the most from The Hobbit is that when Bilbo is coming down, you have elves singing within the trees, welcoming them in a bit of a, I guess you say, teasing manner as they're going down in the valley, and you hear the singing of elves all the way coming down. This is not something that I recall being faithfully repeated anyway, and that is the first memory I get of Rivendell, the sound of the elves as it fills you as you are coming down. And to me, since that is a very important part of the depiction of Rivendell, that is something that is, I find this in, sorry, you do not get that, I would say, in any of them, at least in any way that really strikes me. So,
Okay, were you done? I thought you were going to add something there.
well, I have other things, but I think they're supposed to be reserved for the rebuttal because I was going for why mine instead of theirs.
Okay, all right. You're going to say, does anybody want to challenge anybody for what they said?
Well, Trish was talking about how the game is more spread out, and my biggest issue with the films is just that it's really just Elrond's house and like the place with the moon letters and the dining hall, and then inside that room where Bilbo is, and then there's the place where the council is, and I think that that's all of Rivendell as far as like buildings that we see.
We
And I
actually
don't,
see a little more than that. We see the garden where Aragorn's mother's buried.
yeah,
There's that little bit where he's cleaning off her grave and talking about her. And then there's a covered bridge, or a bridge in a...
Where they plight their troth.
Yeah,
yeah, but there's no other structures though in Rivendell, but I believe in the books it mentions that there's more than just Elrond's house. Um, and so that was kind of weird for me, where it was really just Elrond's house and that's it. Aside from like bridges and a garden and some other things, but as far as like other structures, there really isn't much else in Rivendell. And like, where do they store the horses? Where are all these things that are going on off screen that we just like don't know about? Whereas in the games, you see all those. And then also you mentioned that in the games it doesn't feel like it's in enough of a valley. If it was in any more of a valley, then that winding path down into the valley would be so annoying. I think that they had to adapt it to make playability match with that, and I think they did a fantastic job. And the farther away mountains, as you move towards the Misty Mountains, are very tall and are some of the tallest mountains in the game. So I don't think that that's really an issue. And I don't remember what I was going to rebuttal against what
I'm waiting
Pineleaf
for you to
said,
finish.
but, you can go ahead, Trish.
I never said it wasn't much of a valley. I did not say that. What I said was
That's the
that
mountains or something.
it aligns better with Tolkien's drawings in that the mountains are high peaks. You know, it's like they're really high peaks, and they're and it's actually kind of like built up against the mountainsides. So you've got it's a very small valley, and the buildings all go up, and there's a lot more than Elrond's house there. I mean, I
Yeah,
mean, maybe I have the advantage of just looking at this an hour ago, but there's a lot more there. It's just vertical. So the stables are down below, you know, I mean, it's all there. It's just not spread out wide. It's vertical, and it's
you
a
Right.
actually
very
see it
compact
better in The
valley.
Hobbit when they come
Yeah,
through that cleft, and because I actually paused because I was taking note of what buildings were there, and so you can actually see like the structure where Elrond's house is, and there's a couple of other structures surrounding it, and then like you can kind of tell off to the side there's maybe some stables and stuff sheltered by the
right,
mountain peaks, and then of course you have the waterfalls, which
right.
we don't have in the game.
And amazingly, the guest house is actually like right next door to Elrond's house. Isn't that not a novel idea?
Instead of halfway across the valley.
Yes. But you know, so I mean, I love Rivendell in the game. I mean, the only two arguments I have about Rivendell in the game are the fact that they can't seem to keep their walks weeded, and the narrow bridges. But the narrow bridges are in all three places in the book and in because in the book they talk about in the Hobbit how they had to walk one by one with their ponies because the bridge was so narrow with no parapet. And I'm like, okay, that's where they got the idea. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be mounted on those bridges, everyone that falls off through the lag.
But so I mean, I love. In fact, at first I was like gonna like call in sick for tonight when I found out what the skirmish was going to be because it was going to be so hard. But when I looked again and I really looked to see the spirit of the thing, I really feel like the movie really did a nice job. And you know, there's one scene in The Hobbit where Bilbo comes out in the morning and he just looks around and it's like just beautiful and he sort of stretches and I'm like, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. So anyway, but I didn't say it was not much of a valley or whatever it was you said I said.
Yeah.
Okay, Pineleaf, anything to add?
One thing I would like to add is that when you are in the movies, you have this. You're saying it's supposed to be depicted as this nice, wondrous place, but in The Hobbit, I feel like the dwarves get there, and the first thing they're thinking of is, how do we get out of this place?
Yeah.
And, and in fact, the first thing they do is they go and sneak off to it, and that sort of ruins any feeling I have of Rivendell, is because the first thing they do is pick up and go off. It doesn't feel like the reaction makes me feel like it's not very welcoming, at least in
Well, they're
their
trying to
eyes.
get away from the annoying singing elves going tra-la-la-la-lolly the whole time. That's what's going on. I would
Really,
try
the
to get out of
Purple
there
River
too. Are you
is
kidding?
full of elves, so
I think that that's mostly a difference between because in the Lord of the Rings, it's not an annoying place, and you know the dwarves actually go there in the books and aren't annoyed by Rivendell. At least we don't have any reason to believe that they were. And I think that you know they talk so much about the feeling of Rivendell in the books, and they even put that in the game. There's a lot of dialogue about the feeling of Rivendell and how it kind of changes your mentality. And reading that quest text made me feel so much more like I was actually in Rivendell. And I think that they do a great job doing that. And even the films do a pretty good job with just the general warmth. They use a lot of warm colors and things like that
Right.
to make the audience feel at home. So I think this is probably the toughest skirmish because they're all really good
Yeah.
depictions.
Okay.
Who came up with this skirmish? Andang, did you come up with this skirmish?
I did. It's tough.
That's it. You're out. Go to the corner.
Moderator.
Yeah, okay. I think I have heard enough. And I think I'm ready to pick the winner. This one, like you said, was really tough. I think this was the toughest one so far.
I agree.
I'm kind of right now tied between two of you, and that would be the movies and the game.
Yes.
But I think I'm going to have to give it, and it might be a shock, to the games this week.
Yes, finally, a win.
Finally, Andang wins.
And the major reason why that is just because I remember being a new player when you make that. Well, you don't have to do it now because you can just talk to Gandalf and get there like instantly.
A
But
lot of players don't know that
it
though.
it used to be that was like a rite of passage to run to Rivendell. I
Mhm.
mean, that was one of the hardest things you could do. And when you actually made it, when you got to the gates and you knew you were safe and you rounded that corner and you seen that valley, you seen the last only house, that was, I still remember that feeling when I was a new player seeing that for the first time and just thinking, wow, this is awesome.
And it's
Yeah.
such a relief because you pass those guards and then you know you're safe.
Yep,
Just like
yep.
in the books, it
Yeah.
just feels like a really safe spot. So yeah, I
Of course,
love
in the game, it's
Rivendell.
easier to get there than it is to leave. I almost never have any trouble finding my way to Rivendell anymore, but it's trying to find my way back out. You know, going back down the High Moor, I can never find the
You
way.
talk to the stable master.
Yeah. I thought you meant you couldn't leave because you kept getting sent back there to talk to either Elrond
Well,
or
yeah,
somebody
that
else. It's like,
too.
here,
You know,
you walk in,
however
they go,
many times you have to
welcome.
talk.
Here, let us tie this rubber band onto you so that you will just come flying back here on a regular
But
basis.
if you actually go there, if you take the cheaty Gandalf way to go there, you actually can't really leave easily because you can't use the stable master
Right.
under level 40.
Yeah.
Finally.
Well, yes, but if you got there by the cheating Gandalf method, then you're probably a pretty low level and are going to use your report anyway.
Or you
You're
can
in your
just get
face.
killed by something right outside of Rivendell and be ported back
I
to Bree
did.
anyway.
That's exactly what happened to me. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing.
That's
I go,
probably
okay,
what's going to happen
they
to my
want me to go
mother.
up into the mountains, and I see this lynx and this snow beast who were just like huge in terms of
Yeah.
morale, and I'm like, why am I here? So I died, rezzed. I'm sure back in Rivendell somewhere. I don't even remember. But being a hunter, you're right. I said, okay, that's it. I'm out of here. Yeah, I didn't understand that. I mean, I figured I must have done it wrong because what it actually leads to is instances, right? When he
Yes.
sent you to Rivendell. So, I mean, do you somehow just go into the instance? Is that what I missed? Like I didn't have to go trudging up the path in Misty Mountains, right?
No, well, it doesn't. Right, you use the instance finder in order to
Oh, okay.
enter the instances.
And yeah,
Hmm.
Barnabas
Anyway.
from the chat mentions getting through all those bears and lynx were awful. Once you fall off that bridge, it's hard to get back. That's
I'm
true,
with
but
you.
getting to Rivendell is such a triumph after you get through all of that stuff. So, I
And then
really
you fall
enjoy
off a bridge and all the love is gone.
it.
That's right.
Right.
You fall in the water and it's like, okay, I'm done.
All right, where's that port?
That's right.
All right, let's head into donations. If we had any, but we did not have any Patreon mentions this week, but we would just love your support. To help support LOTRO players, simply go to the donations page where you can support the Players Alliance on Patreon. There you will find rewards, including a mention of the podcast of your choice, or even a guest of an episode of LOTRO Players News or Adventures. As for feedback, we did not receive any iTunes reviews, but we would love one of those too. But we do have a featured comment, which seems to be an entire essay based on the link.
Yeah, it's an email.
Very well. Trish, could you please read Peggy's?
Oh my goodness.
If
Oh my
you want
goodness.
to read just part of it, then someone else can read the rest. How
All
about
right,
that?
Let's see how well I do here. All right. So let's see. So Peggy left a comment on last week's show. I first found Endang searching YouTube for videos on how to play quest instance battles. These were consistently helpful and very fun to watch as he acts out his role and reads the game's inserted instructions and comments in character. This is true. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Although I have been playing since September 2008, I still have issues soloing more intense quests, and his tutorials have been especially helpful. So imagine my delight when I discovered Andang to have a primary role in LOTRO Players. Yay! I already trusted him, so tried to read this blog regularly, and finally and finally following it so as not to miss important features. Now I feel as if I know you all in real life, having come across you here as well as Fun with Freelorn on Thursday Twitch broadcasts. Because Arathair was so kind to me there in chat, I checked out his Twitch broadcast and followed him. I congratulate his streaming abilities, and whoever said today in LOTRO players that watching and chatting on live stream is tantamount to dropping into the game when you can't play yourself nailed it. Now I want to watch other streams too, as Arathair just made it so enjoyable. And I'll let Andang, why don't you read the next section, because that's kind of been an area of view that you have.
Yes, and they continue on saying, I've also played Guild Wars 2, so I'm intrigued that you would do what seems to be the same format for that game. I find Guild Wars 2 much more difficult to play than LOTRO, but have managed to level a ranger and an environmentalist to 80, at which time I found that the in-game was not as compelling for my style, so only pop in occasionally these days. The one additional comment I would like to add regards today's debate over Aragorn. I came to Tolkien from the books and still read them regularly. The movies have brought them to impact life and demonstrated Tolkien's vision to millions who would never have come across it otherwise, and done so with quality. I admit I have critiqued the movies with the perspective of, that's not the lore, but lately have come to see them with more of a folk process view. I studied folk guitar in my youth and always worried that when playing my previous lesson for my teacher, that I never really knew the tunes to sing along, as I had never come across them before. So the tunes never really were what he had sung. But he, I think, wisely consoled me with an admonishment not to worry, as that was the folk process. I only wish Christopher Tolkien felt that to be a valid perspective for his father's world and allowed more of it to be shared in the movies and games, if done with respectable creativity as LOTRO has. Therefore I feel all sides of the debate today were valid. No one view is right, quote unquote, because once the words leave the pen of an author, they become partly owned by the intended audience, and therefore open to interpretation. Thank you all for a most enjoyable broadcast today. Peggy, aka Hendembar.
All right.
Hindembar.
Endenbar. All right. And we also have one from Bruthvo, who left a comment on this week's poll. Obviously, Lalia will win. Think of the armor she could fashion out of her mithril coins. Or she could port right behind you with them and trap you in a cloak.
See, this is interesting, because Lalia wasn't anywhere near the top, but when you bring in mithril coins into the equation, all of a sudden, all bets are off, I think. I really enjoyed this comment.
I wasn't thinking about all that mithril she'd been
now,
collecting
the
over the
Lalia
years.
that we know in Bree is not the same as the little girl in the Barrow
Oh, yes,
Downs.
it is.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Next time I go into that store, I'm kicking her in the shins. She is the most annoying little girl out there on the hill. She's right up there with Deirdre up in Angmar. She's another one that I want to kick.
I'm pretty sure that that's the only place in Bree that you could actually steal from, and the Bree guards would just stand up and applaud. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Well, I think I believe the official word is that she decided that she was tired of the Barrel Downs and decided to settle and get a respectable life. So she opened up a shop.
An older, slightly wiser version of Lalia.
Yes.
Okay. So she doesn't run around and attract mobs and then cry.
Well, yes, she's decided those days
Actually,
are
she's
over.
probably doing that with the men in her life now. Is probably how she does that. She runs around.
Well, she's got to get those mithril coins for her big, amazing hats that she wears in the Peter Jackson films. So.
We did not We did not receive any emails this week, but if you'd like to send us one, you can send it to us at podcast@lotroplayers.com. And you can also follow us at Twitter, the Players Alliance at Players Ally, Lotro Players at Lotro Players, Anding at PVNP_Anding, Braxwolf at Braxwolf, Draculetta at Draculetta_72, Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles, and Trish at Trish Lambert. The Players Alliance has 3 shows every single week. We have DDO Players News at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time on Mondays. We have Guild Wars Players News at 6:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time on Thursdays, and Lotro Players News at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time on Saturdays. And you can join us for our live shows at lotroplayers.com/live. Thank you everyone for listening. This is Pineleaf Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.